Hey there, Sheldon here with ESI, and today we're going to look at a couple of subtotaling features in Excel. The first one I'm going to look at is under the Data tab, and it's this over here, the right side. I'm going to call this the Subtotal Function, and then the second one we'll look at is the formula, such as right here. And we'll go into this and explain what this is all about. We're going to begin by looking at the subtotal function that sits underneath the Data tab. Now, before we click the subtotal button, which is over on the right here, we'll want to go ahead and put the cursor in the data we wish to subtotal. Now, also note that I want to subtotal this by region, so I went ahead and sorted by region. I have all the central, all the east, then all the west together. So I'm going to go ahead and click the subtotal button. It brings up a little dialog box. The very first parameter asks when do I want to subtotal? And I want to do it at each time that the region changes. So when we go from central to east, I want to subtotal the central. When we go from east to west, we want to subtotal east, and then at the end we'll subtotal west. We could change that to anything we wanted. We could have sorted by units, for example, and every time there was a change in the number of units, we could get some kind of a function. But we're going to go ahead and stick with the region. And what I want is I want a sum. I want to add up. Every time there's a change in the region, I want to add up something. And this something I'm going to do is I'm going to add up the units and the totals. So I'm going to go ahead and click the units and the totals. So now, every time there's a change in the region, I want a sum of the units and the total. This replace current subtotals basically acts just like this button does. It will remove all subtotals and then perform this action. If we just click remove all right now, it would close this dialog box and remove all subtotals. Page break between groups will do just that. It will give you a page break, putting everything in its own page. So central would sit on one page if you wanted to print this out. East would be on one page, and so would west. It doesn't create 3 sheets, it would just create 3 pages. Summary below data can be checked or unchecked, means where do you want the subtotal line? I like it below the data. So between central and east, I want a line explaining or showing the central subtotal. I want the subtotal for central to be below the central region. Let's go ahead and hit OK. And we'll see that now we have a central total that gives us a sum of the units and then a sum of the total. And we have one for the east and the west. And at the bottom, we have a grand total, which accounts for everything. I'm going to hit the subtotal button again. I'm going to remove the summary below data checkbox. And you'll see, since I am keeping this checked, it's going to remove everything and then recalculate the subtotals, putting the total information at the top of each region. So I'm going to go ahead and, so right here, I clicked subtotal and it didn't know what to do because of what I highlighted. Can't be applied to the selected range. So I'm going to go back, just click on any cell within the data, click on subtotal. I'm going to go ahead and put it back to summary below data. So now what I have per region is a sum of the units and a sum of the total. Let's say in addition, I wanted the average unit cost. I would click on Subtotal, indicate that each change in region, I want an average. I want it of unit cost. And then I'm going to uncheck Replace Current Subtotals because I want this average to be in addition to the sum. Hit OK. And now for each region, I should have an average line showing me what the average is for the unit cost. And then I have a grand average as well. So let's look at the subtotal formula. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and look at the subtotal formula. So I'm going to begin by inserting a line between, or an extra row between each region. And now I can hit the auto sum button. And it's going to give me a sum of the units. Now notice what happens if I hit the auto sum again when I'm at the very bottom. It knows to just pick up the three sums. Give me a correct total of 1565. Let's say I entered this manually and I highlighted everything. Well, now it gives me double the number because it's looking at the sum totals as well as everything in between. So it's adding up all of these in addition to the 798 that these total. So what we can do, we're going to look at subtotal. So I'm going to hit equals subtotal, and my sum function is going to be 9. Then I'm going to highlight this information again. So now it's telling me to perform a subtotal function on this data using 9, which means sum. We'll do it again down here. And you'll see I could have averaged, I could do a count, count TA, max, everything else. But again, we're going to go ahead and do a sum. And now we'll do the same thing at the bottom. I'll do a subtotal, 9. But again, I'm going to highlight everything. And the subtotal knows just to add up the 3 different subtotals. Just another way of adding things up. I'll do it over here where I could do subtotal 1, because now I want the average. And I can do the same thing for east and west. And then once again, I could just highlight everything. And it gives me a real average, averaging the averages above it. So it's an intelligent formula that knows what to do. So one other thing I want to show you here with the subtotal. I'm going to go ahead and do a subtotal for the sum. And our total here is 7141.93. I'm going to manually put it over here. I'm going to go ahead, highlight a row, and hide it. Notice that the totals still match. Hiding the row had no effect. If you add 100 to whatever the function number is, so 109, it will only add up, or average, or count, or whatever, rows that are shown. So once again, I'm going to highlight a row, right click, hide it. You'll see now we have 6692 versus our original total of 7141. When we hit subtotal, we have, it appears, 11 different functions that we can use. And then if you add 100 to those functions, it will only display the totals of rows that are visible, not hidden. Alrighty, thanks for watching.